Hello everyone, my name is Chris Hurtado and thanks for tuning in to my new YouTube series. What I'd like to do with this series is just simply talk about films, old, recent. I want to give my reviews, my thoughts and opinions on them. A little bit of retrospectives as well on a few. We'll have a wide range of films to review. My library is extensive. My interests are vast. For my YouTube series, I would also do reviews with a rating scale, and with my rating scale, it'll be a simple traditional 1 through 5, with obviously 1 being terrible, 2 out of 5 would be unsatisfactory, 3 out of 5 would be average, okay, fine, 4 out of 5 would be a good film, and then 5 out of 5, terrific, recommend it. Go out and see it for crying out loud. So that's how I'll do my films. After each review on my videos, I'll give it a rating scale. Basically throughout the video on my reviews, I'll talk a little bit about the movie, kind of like behind the scenes of it, and then I'll give a review of what the plot is, and then my pros and cons on it as well. Obviously with today's first video, it's going to be on my all-time favorite film, Alien. I'm very excited to talk about this film. I usually never talk about this film outside of my friend circle, and to let people on the internet know about my thoughts on it is going to be very interesting. So I know it's a very hit or miss franchise with folks. People love it, but then they also don't love it because the franchise itself has a lot of bad. But let's talk about the original Alien, my all-time favorite film. So Alien came out in 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Terry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Veronica Cartwright, and Yafet. I hate myself because I could never remember how to pronounce his last name. But he was the bad guy in the film Trucker Turner, which is a blaxploitation film with Hayes. I forget his name. Isaac Hayes. Sorry. Jeez. Woo! Already talking about too many different movies. Let's stick with Alien. So Alien's a 1979 sci-fi film. It was nominated for Best Picture. And it really set and influenced a lot of future cinema after its release. It's obviously a horror film, sci-fi-esque as well. The music was composed by Jerry Goldsmith, who does a fantastic job with this film. So, my all-time favorite decade is the 70s. So obviously, it's fitting that the last film of that decade that came out it wasn't the last film, but one of the last films that came out for that decade was Alien, and it's my all-time favorite. So, Alien takes place with seven not passengers, but they're coal refinery miners who are hired by a company called the Weyland Corp to retrieve coal, and on their way home, they are awakened by a distress signal, and they go to investigate it. And the film starts out, though, however, with a beautiful shot with the opening credits and the beautiful score to their pods where they're waking up. And they go in to investigate that signal, and one of the characters, Kane, who's played by John Hurt, brings back an alien species back to the ship, and they figure out that it wasn't actually a distress signal, it was actually a warning. And once this alien infamously pops to the screen, so to speak, it begins to pick off each of the passengers one by one until a final showdown happens at the end of the film. This film, what it does well is it creates an atmosphere of suspense and dread. Nobody is safe on this ship. Everything is close and tight and compact because it travels through the ventilation system of this ship. So you can't tell where it is. But what also is great about this film are the characters. Each one of them has such a distinct personality that's really developed in a short amount of time, and I have to applaud Ridley Scott for that. You really do feel for these characters, and you know what kind of characters they are. So when they die, you kind of do feel something for them. And one of the biggest players of this film is the Xenomorph Alien itself, which has a very interesting concept. It was conceived by H.R. Geiger, who was an artist, and the concept design for it is just horrifically beautiful. and it's shown that on screen. It actually was played by a young African man who I think was like 7 feet tall, and it was all in a costume and makeup. And what they had him do when he was on the screen is they had him hooked up by wires, and he was so tall and he had to stand up. He would get tired, so they'd have to latch him on so he would like hang and dangle, which sounds terrible, but he made that work. But they used practical effects back then, and it is, it looks great, and I applaud him for that, and Ridley Scott being determined to make this film come out. When this film did come to the screen, it scared the living daylights out of everybody. I know when I first saw this film, I was about 13 or 14 years old, and my dad let me see it with him on VHS, and I was blown away. I knew right then on that film is for me. I am all about it. It was actually this Blu-ray, the 35th anniversary edition, was the first Blu-ray I ever bought. I probably overpaid for it when it first came out on Blu-ray at Best Buy, but I paid out of pocket for it. And so things I like about this film. What I like are the atmosphere that it creates. I love the characters, especially Sigourney Weaver's character of Ellen Ripley. She's not one of, but she is the best heroine ever on cinema, ever portrayed, actually. And I also love the score. Jerry Goldsmith, like I said before, is fantastic. Each score he sounds is beautiful and it's dreadful. And I also love the shots of the film. The cinematography is gorgeous. Just the opening credits from outside to inside the ship is slowly panned, and it's so hard to believe that this film was made in 1979 because everything looks so real. You feel like you're in an actual commercial ship. And I got to give credit where credit's due on that for this film. And some of my cons for this film, though it is my all-time favorite movie, I do recognize it does have some flaws. One of its flaws is its runtime. I recently resaw this film with my girlfriend, and though I'm always into this film when I watch it, I could tell she was getting a little tired with it because it does have a fairly long runtime. For some people, if you love this film, it won't bother you, but I do acknowledge it does run a little longer than it maybe could have. Another thing I don't care for is the deaths. They're very short and quick. They hit you like that, and that's about it. I would wish that they went more in depth with that. I know that sounds very insane, but the violence isn't as violent as it probably could have been. It's rated R, but I understand it was an older film, and at the time it's different than it is today for what it means to be a rated R film. I mean, and also the third part, even though it has one of the best showdowns ever in cinema, in my opinion, the ending is a little because I mean it wants to end, but then it doesn't end, and then and then after the showdown, it doesn't end as soon as it's over. But I think it really does fit the film with the ending. Also, one of my criticisms of the Blu-ray is that there's two different versions. Well, it's not a criticism for having two different versions. My criticism mostly is on the director's cut versus the theatrical. I think the theatrical is actually the more superb version of the film. The theatrical has some scenes that are kind of unnecessary on it, and it makes it a little longer. And with Ridley Scott, I know that's kind of his thing. I think the best version where it is the director's final cut would be on Blade Runner from him. I love this film also. I saw it in the big screen last year with my friend Daniel, who also purchased this t-shirt for me. Thank you, Daniel. I go to bed with it almost every other night, and I do watch it. I have a movie poster of it as well. Yeah, with Alien, if you haven't seen this film, my goodness, stop what you're doing, take a day off, watch it. I hope you didn't watch any of the other films in the franchise before seeing this one, because in my opinion, this is the best film in the franchise. I do own every other film, and I have seen them more than once. And I know the franchise is very hit or miss. I can't help but love this franchise and what it is. I know it's all about, for me, Sigourney Weaver's character for the first 4 films. And then after that, it really kind of goes into the universe and the Xenomorphs. But I think this film has the best portrayal of that xenomorph as well, as like this insanely terrifying entity that just has nothing but drive to kill. And in one one famous scene that the character Ash says about the xenomorph that I love is he quotes by saying, I admire its purity, the perfect killing machine. I don't know if exactly that the quote is, but I do know he calls it the perfect organism. And the alien by design is just beautiful in the most terrifying kind of way. And it really set the tone for what sci-fi horror movies should be. And there are a lot of films that have tried to replicate it. I know one of them that comes to mind is Life. Life was heavily influenced by Alien. Though it wasn't as great as Alien was, I did applaud it. It was a very entertaining film because I do love this film. So with that, I just want to say that Alien was definitely for me a 5 out of 5. I think objectively speaking that it is a 5 out of 5 because the positive completely outweigh the negatives on it. But yeah, that's my review on Alien, and thanks for listening to my thoughts on this retrospective video. Expect more of some of this for my future videos. I'll probably do a few other things. Maybe I'll go into the Alien franchise if you'd like to see that, my thoughts on that. Maybe comment down below. If you have other films that you'd like for me to do a review on, if I own it, I probably would do that. But, you know, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to start this channel. Though I won't have a t-shirt for every film I review, I wish I could. Other than that, I also have a letterbox page on the website that I also do reviews on. I actually haven't done a written review. I've been a little discouraged to do a review on my all-time favorite movie, which is funny because I'm doing my first video on it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on it, and thanks for listening. These have been the Hurt-tastic reviews, and I'm signing off.